During World War II, entire regions across Europe faced a reality that, well, most modern people have never experienced. Food systems failed almost overnight. Rail lines were bombed, fuel was rationed, fertilizer vanished, and imported grain simply stopped arriving. Governments issued ration books, but rations alone did not keep people alive. What did were plants that could grow without fertilizer, without irrigation, and without mechanized farming. One plant in particular quietly fed villages, prison camps, and rural families when nothing else could be relied upon. It grew tall like a weed, produced calories underground, and came back year after year, whether anyone planted it or not. And after the war, it almost disappeared. The Jerusalem artichoke became a lifeline when potatoes failed. The plant was the Jerusalem artichoke, also known as the sunchoke. Despite its name, it is neither from Jerusalem nor an artichoke. It is a sunflower relative that produces knobby tubers underground, much like potatoes, but with far fewer demands. During World War II, especially in Germany, France, Eastern Europe and parts of Russia, the Jerusalem artichoke became a fallback crop when potatoes were requisitioned for armies or wiped out by disease. What made it indispensable was reliability. It tolerated poor soil, cold weather, drought and neglect. It could be planted once and harvested for years. Even if fields were abandoned or shelled, the tubers survived underground. Entire villages relied on it when traditional crops failed. In POW camps and civilian relief zones, it was sometimes the only fresh food available during winter months. Wartime agricultural planners did not care about supermarket aesthetics. They cared about calories per acre, labour required, and failure resistance. Jerusalem artichokes produced more calories per square foot than most grains and required no replanting. They stored themselves in the ground through winter, eliminating the need for root cellars or refrigeration. The tubers were rich in inulin, a carbohydrate that, sustained energy over long periods. While not ideal for refined baking, they could be boiled, mashed, dried, fermented, or even fed to livestock. The leaves and stalks were used as fodder. Nothing was wasted. In a time when every scrap mattered, this plant fit perfectly. After the war, agriculture shifted hard toward mechanization and uniformity. Crops that could be harvested by machines, stored in standardized warehouses, and sold in neat shapes took priority. Jerusalem artichokes grow irregularly, spread aggressively, and do not fit cleanly into industrial systems. They also lack the marketing appeal of white potatoes or wheat. Another factor was digestive discomfort. Inulin ferments in the gut, and for populations suddenly returning to rich diets. This plant gained an unfair reputation as undesirable. Instead of adjusting preparation methods, it was simply abandoned. Seed companies stopped promoting it. Agricultural colleges stopped teaching it. Within a generation, a plant that once fed villages became a curiosity. Jerusalem artichokes grow, 6 to 10 feet tall, shading the soil and naturally suppressing weeds. Their deep roots, they mine nutrients from below the reach of shallow crops. Once planted, they really require almost no care at all. They thrive in marginal land where, honestly, corn and wheat tend to struggle. And even in dry years, they just keep on producing. For modern gardeners, homesteaders, or anyone concerned with food security, this really matters. You can plant a small patch once and then, harvest tubers every fall and winter for decades. You just harvest what you need, leaving the rest to keep growing. There's no storage loss, no electricity cost, and no seed expense after the first year. A modern application is, pretty straightforward. Plant tubers in early spring, about 4 inches deep and spaced 18 inches apart. Choose an edge of the property where spread is acceptable, because honestly, containment does matter. By late summer, the plants will tower over most vegetables. In fall, after frost, you can dig tubers as needed. Leave some behind on purpose. They'll return even stronger the next year. In a survival context, this plant acts as a calorie reserve you cannot easily lose. Fire, drought, even theft are less devastating when your food source is underground and perennial. During the Second World War, that distinction meant survival. Today, it means resilience. Now, this isn't about romanticizing hardship, not at all. It's about, understanding why certain types of knowledge just seem to vanish when our systems get a bit fragile. The Jerusalem artichoke, for example, was erased not because it failed, but actually because it succeeded outside the industrial model. During the Second World War, folks were forced to value things like redundancy and self-reliance. But when peace returned, those hard-won lessons suddenly became a bit inconvenient. As climate volatility increases and supply chains, they remain vulnerable. The same traits that made this plant valuable back in 1942 make it relevant again today. History, you see, already tested it under pressure. And honestly, that test was passed. When food became uncertain, people didn't survive by chasing novelty, They survived by returning to plants that simply refused to fail. The Jerusalem artichoke didn't need protection, promotion, or even technology. It just grew. And for a time, that was all it took to feed entire communities. So, if this kind of forgotten practical history matters to you, do consider subscribing to the channel, share this video with someone who understands the value of hard-earned knowledge, and help keep these lessons alive before they disappear again.